We all think we know what it means to be sick, right? But what if it's more complicated than that? In this explainer, we're going to dig into that very idea. We'll start with our own bodies and end up asking some pretty big questions about our society. So, let's jump right in. Okay, so let's just start with a really provocative question. What if the most dangerous illnesses aren't actually found in our bodies at all, but in our societies? What if they're unfolding right now, in our workplaces, our communities, maybe even our countries? That's the big idea we're going to unpack together. But to even start to answer that, we've got to get on the same page about what illness even means. So let's start small, at the individual level. Okay, so at the most basic level, you can kind of split physical harm into two big buckets. On one side, you've got physical damage from the outside world. You know, a car accident, a cut. It's that feeling of something hit me. And on the other side, that's where you have pathological conditions. This is when something inside your body isn't working right, like an infection or a genetic issue. That's more of a something is wrong inside me kind of feeling. But here's the thing, harm isn't just about our physical bodies, right? We can experience it across three really key areas. There's the physical, of course, but there's also our psychological health, our moods, our behaviors, and our cognitive health, which covers stuff like memory and our ability to focus. And this brings us to a really, really important term for our conversation today, the illness catalyst. So think of this as the objective cause. It's the virus, the injury, the toxin. It's the measurable thing that has the potential to cause illness, whether we actually feel its effects yet or not. And trust me, that distinction is absolutely crucial. Because here's the twist. Just because an illness catalyst is there, that doesn't automatically mean you're actually ill. Nope. For that to happen, something else has to be in the picture. And this is it. This is the key. Illness isn't just some biological state, it's also a social one. You see, you could be carrying a virus, that's the catalyst, but you don't really experience the illness in a social sense until someone, maybe even you, declares it. So, where does this declaration come from? Well, it can happen in two ways. First, you can declare it yourself. You wake up and say, "Ugh, I feel sick." That's an internal declaration. But it can also come from the outside. Someone looks at you and says, "Whoa, you don't seem like yourself today." All of a sudden, illness isn't just this private thing happening inside you. It's a social event. And this is where things can get a little dangerous. What happens if there's no declaration? Well, that dysfunction, it can just kind of fade into the background. It becomes the new normal. And what was once clearly seen as an illness slowly, quietly becomes the new baseline for how things are. Okay, so if we've got that idea down, let's scale it up. If an illness needs a social declaration to really exist, then can a whole social group get sick? We're talking a family, a company, maybe an entire community? And the answer seems to be a resounding yes. We see this all the time, right, don't we? In families with toxic dynamics, in workplaces with a bullying culture, in communities that feel broken and fragmented, or even in corrupt institutions. These are all, in a way, examples of social or relational illness. The sickness isn't in any one person. It's in the system. It's in the connections between people. But trying to diagnose a group, man, that is incredibly hard. For starters, you've got power dynamics, right? The people in charge might just deny there's a problem, even when everyone else sees it. Then you have different levels of awareness. The dysfunction might be crushing some people while others barely notice it. And finally, you get this phenomenon of collective denial, where the group as a whole just refuses to admit that it has a problem. And all of this, all of it, leads us to a central mystery, a massive, almost unbelievable gap in how we understand the world. First, let's be super clear on why having a list like this even matters. It's not just some academic thing to file away. It's an incredibly powerful tool. Think about a doctor. Having a huge, comprehensive list of diseases is like a master checklist. It makes them way more effective and helps them make sure they don't miss something critical. So for individual human illness, how many recognized causes or catalysts do you think we've cataloged? The number is over 55,000. Yeah, 55,000. And that number is the result of a vast, sophisticated infrastructure built over centuries. We've got multiple incredibly detailed manuals like the ICD-11, the DSM-5, all designed for one single purpose: to identify every single thing that can make an individual person sick. Okay, now, what about for social illnesses? What does that list look like? Well, it's short. It's really short. We have a few scattered frameworks here and there from different fields, but there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that comes close to a unified, systematic catalog. The difference between the two is just staggering. And this brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all: why? Why is there this massive gap? Why are we so incredibly meticulous about diagnosing one person, but so completely lost when it comes to diagnosing our society? No, seriously, just think about that for a second. All that time, all that money, all that brain power focused on one side and almost a total blank on the other. What is going on? Well, there are a few possibilities maybe. Maybe, just maybe, it's too complex. Or, maybe it's just a systemic failure, a blind spot we haven't gotten around to fixing yet. But the source material for this explainer points to a third and, frankly, much more disturbing possibility: that this gap, it isn't an accident. It might be willful ignorance. Willful ignorance. What does that actually mean? It means that the absence of a list might actually be serving powerful interests. It suggests that for some, social dysfunction isn't a problem to be solved, it's a profitable environment to be maintained. Think about it. A real list would name the causes, and that could threaten power structures and economic interests. It's so much easier to just throw your hands up, say, "It's complicated," and maintain plausible deniability. And this leads to an even more chilling thought. It's not that there is no list of what causes social illness. It's that a false one is being actively promoted to all of us. The source material actually calls this the scapegoat list. The argument goes like this. When people start to feel the symptoms of a sick society, that feeling of anxiety, division, that sense that things are just broken, this false list provides a bunch of easy targets to blame. It becomes a really powerful tool of misdirection, doesn't it? It shifts all our focus away from the real systemic problems and channels it into cultural battles. Which brings us to our final question for you to think about. If we were to actually create a true, honest, systematic list of social illness catalysts, just like we have for medicine, who exactly would have the most to lose? And maybe more importantly, what might the rest of us have to gain?